Good morning, Miss Smith. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. Hey, I appreciate you hopping on to the podcast today. And I would like to start off by asking you what I ask most of our guests, and that is, what does creativity mean to you?
It means, well, mainly it's just living my life, but being creative just helps me to think and do and be and help others do the same.
Hmm. And what is your most creative endeavor currently? What are the things that you're doing in the creative lane?
Currently, um, I'm a retired art teacher, so right now I'm getting to actually paint and draw for myself. And
Nice.
so I have my little studio and it's crammed full of oil paintings and pastels and silk paintings and all kinds of things. And I'm getting my pottery studio up and going again so I can start slinging some mud around and
Mm,
making a mess out there.
neat. So, how did you fall into this love of art?
I really don't know. It's just I've always done it. My earliest memories as a child when I was 4 and 5 years old are drawing and painting. I can remember in kindergarten, that was the main thing I remember from kindergarten is, drawing pictures.
Hmm. What was it that you primarily drew back then?
Oh, I drew horses all the time.
Yes. Do you still like horses today?
Yeah, I have four of them outside.
Fancy. And do you do anything with your horses other than obviously take care of them and love them? But what kind of horses are they?
I've been a professional trainer for 50 years now. So, and my horses are mainly trained for jumping,
Mhm.
and I have one that's trained for driving and dressage. And I have two. One's a purebred and one's a part bred that are a very rare breed that was saved from extinction by the Queen of England. So if you ever watched the coronation parades and saw those dark brown, kind of reddish brown horses with the black manes and tails,
Mhm.
that color is called bay in horses. And the name of the breed is a Cleveland Bay from the Cleveland district of England. And the Queen was the main breeder of Cleveland Bays. I think there's like 900 purebreds in the world, and I have a purebred and a part-bred colt.
Fancy. Do these horses ever show up in your artwork currently?
Actually, I haven't been painting them as much, but what happens is the friends of mine with kids that have high school age children, they come out here and take pictures of them, and my horses end up in the rodeo art finals quite regularly.
So fun. That's really neat. So tell me, how do you balance your creativity with your everyday life? So I know you're a retired art teacher, but you're still working in some fashion, right?
Yes. So most of my work is actually creativity is the basis of most everything. It helps your flexibility of thinking. So I've always used it in all the jobs I've had, and I've moved all over the country. So I've had lots of different jobs, and I've brought that creativity to every job. And so I've been pretty much successful at most everything I've done.
Nice. So what are you doing now?
Well, I'm teaching art lessons. So once a week I go and I'm in part of an enrichment program for homeschool students.
Mhm.
So one day a week, I teach classes for kindergarten through 12th grade. And I also have a number of people that are wanting me to do private art lessons and some of those like paint and sip type things. And then I throw in some writing lessons and oh, I actually do a little bit of side work as a security guard once in a while just to make things interesting.
Hmm. So with balancing all of those different little jobs, how do you have time to do your hobby and accomplish your own creative endeavors?
Well, I usually block out 2 or 3 days a week just to work in the studio. And then it's right here. So anytime if I can't sleep or something, I can come out here and just work on things. So that's always something needs a little touch up, or the oil painting in particularly needs to dry before I can add things to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes a little time. So I don't get in a hurry, and I just kind of do things as they come up. If I have to stop and go run an errand, that's fine. I come back and go back to work.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you keep the momentum going and not get burned out?
People keep asking me and paying me for pictures.
So you're making money off your art.
They'll
That's how.
make a money out of it. And then I've got art shows. I'm finally able to enter some art shows. And
Mhm.
so I got some lined up and getting things ready for art shows. And what happens is they end up selling before the art show. So I have to come up with something else.
Mhm. Mhm. So you're kind of already touching on it, but how has being creative impacted your life?
Like I said, um, I've always brought that to the table. So I worked for a number of years in construction, remodeling houses, cabinet maker, and the craftsmanship involved in artwork served me really well. Of course, I was doing this in the 70s when women weren't allowed to do much of anything.
Mm.
And I was the first girl, first woman in the history of what fill in the blank to ever do the things I was doing. I was the first girl in the whole North Texas area to take wood shop in high school. They had just done the non-discrimination law, and they couldn't not let me do it. But they argued and argued and argued, trying to talk me out of it, and I wouldn't get talked out of it. I've always been very, I want to do what I want to do, and nobody can say anything to talk me out of it. And then the class that I was in, all of it was had the best behavior, the highest quality of work, because all of the guys in the class were trying to do, oh, if she can do it, I can do it.
Mhm.
And that class was like off the charts in ability and grades and productivity. And I ended up getting the woodworking award at the end of the year.
So fun.
I went back to a high school reunion about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, and two men came up to me and said they had been young boys in that class that I was in and just kind of fangirled all over me.
How fun is that? And you
That
weren't
was
even
pretty cool.
supposed to be in there, right? That
Yep.
is so cool. So, what do you do to bring creativity into the side jobs? So, like you were saying, you took wood shop and you did construction and remodeling. All of that requires creative juices to
Mhm.
flow to have something different every time, so it's not cookie cutter. Um, but even obviously as an art teacher, it's they would say that's probably the most creative job. But what about even in training horses? Like how does creativity show up in everything you do?
Oh gosh, that takes the most creativity because horses are like people in that each one needs something different from you. And you have to be open, and you have to uh, let inspiration strike on how to get across to the horses. In my teaching career, I've the administrators have asked me the same thing, and I've told them I learned all my teaching skills from training horses.
Mhm.
Students are the same way. You have to be open to the inspiration of what that student needs, and
So,
the horses are excellent training ground.
so with that being said, it kind of leads right into the next question. If somebody wanted to start art, how would they start it? Um, How did you get those stubborn students, if you will, who came into your class and said they're not any good in art, they're just in here because they placed me in here, but yet you get them to create something and be proud of what they create? How did you do that?
Well, you have to ease them into it, like the horses. The horses are 1,200 pounds of I don't want to, and the kids are darn close to that, and they have a lot more attitude than the horses. So you have to just kind of ease them into it. And I set it up. It's kind of a no brainer. I said, "You're in this class. You can't do anything about it." They said, "I have nothing to do with it. They put you in this class. So let's make the best of it. And so we can have fun with this if you let me work with you. Just try to do what I ask you to do. And if you try to do it, then you get a good grade. I try as much as I can to take grades out of it in the classroom.
Mhm.
So this is how you get it. So I write on the board, if you follow these directions, you get an A. And so they can tell it's right there on the board. Wow, they need to get an A. And as they follow the directions and they learn how to use the tools to create art, they find out they can actually do it. And that little light bulb moment is very powerful. Once they figure out they can do it, I've got them hooked.
Mhm.
The second most important thing is that everyone has to put theirs up in public in the classroom, put their artwork up, and have all the students critique it. They have to say what's right and what's wrong with it, which the students find very powerful, that they can say they don't like something, but they have to use the rules of art. They can't just trash somebody's stuff. So critique is different from a criticism in that it's a positive.
Mhm.
And so learning a positive critique is probably one of the most important skills I teach them. You know, drawing and painting is fine, but teaching how to uh, discuss somebody's work in a positive manner and give positive reinforcement and positive, uh, you know, ways to correct is a very useful skill. And I explained to them, I said, you see the principal coming and sitting in on the classrooms and writing stuff down, that's the principal giving the teacher a critique. So everybody gets critiques when you get a job. So this is something, and I try to tie what I teach into their everyday life. This is how you can use this in everyday life.
Mhm.
And that also resonates with the kids. They're tired of being told to do things just for the sake of doing them.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
They said, how does this relate to me? You know, students are very egocentric.
No way. So then,
Yeah,
with that being said, if somebody wanted to start today to creating an art piece of art, what would you tell them to do? Where would they start?
there's a couple places they can start. One is to find an artist that they enjoy or an art teacher and make sure that you know their work and know what kind of teacher they are and take lessons from them or ask them, kind of pick their brain for what type of supplies are the best and buy yourself the best supplies that you can afford. Luckily, art supplies come in different grades of quality, and you can pretty much, the more it costs, the better it is pretty much standard because the materials, are pricey. The better quality materials are pricey to create and make. And so people can recommend, there's art groups, there's art leagues all around that can help you. And they have like open studios where all the artists get together and you can just bounce ideas off each other. That's a real good place to go. Um, I have a plein air group that I paint with, and we all help each other. We all, go around and critique each other's work. And, oh, that's really nice. I love how how I got caught the light there on the water, and said, you might want to add, if they want to know, and most of them want to know, what can I do to fix this and make it better?
Mhm.
Because I mean, none of us are master artists in a world-class museum, so we all have something that we can do better. And that's the fundamental of artist groups, is that, you know help me make it better.
Mhm.
And you can learn a lot just by hanging out with groups of people like that. There's also lots of YouTube videos nowadays. Different artists are on YouTube. My sister has YouTube videos. I've considered putting some up myself. I probably need to do that.
Mhm.
And, how to videos. In my classroom, I had videos that I took. One of the benefits of COVID is I videotaped all my lessons. So all my lessons are on video, and I can just, if somebody wants to learn something, I can just send them a video and they can just go along my video and learn it.
Mhm. That's awesome. So I'm still amazed at how you got students who didn't believe in themselves to, try something and realize they actually could do it and they could actually learn how to have a growth mindset and get better at it as they went on and not just this fixed mindset they can't do it so they don't even try. I think that's awesome. I think there's a lot of adults that would be listening that are also in that camp. Like
Yes.
they tried when they were younger, they got horrible feedback from a peer or a teacher, and then they stopped trying. Um, what is your encouragement on getting people to just pick up the paintbrush, pick up the pencil, and try again?
That is a tough one because all those students that never tried grew up to be adults that quit trying.
Hmm.
And then even more adults think that they're too old. There's this myth out there that you have to have a certain like art gene in order to do that. And yes, certain people are better at things than others. I'm a left-handed dyslexic. I have a weird way of looking at the world, and I translate that onto paper. But it's a learned skill. Drawing and painting is a learned skill that everyone can enjoy doing just for their own satisfaction and for nothing else. Getting gifts for their family. So people aren't born knowing how to walk, knowing how to ride a bike, knowing how to drive a car, play basketball. They're all learned skills. Some people put more effort into than others. Some people have more natural talent than others. Drawing's the same way.
Hmm.
So I encourage the adults by number one, the little paint and sip things. My sister is phenomenal at this, where she sets them up with a drawing and they can copy the drawing onto their watercolor paper, and then she shows them step by step how to add the colors in. Every one of them turns out different, but they all start with the same basic, and then they all turn out well, and that really encourages a lot of adults. And I have the same sort of things that I can do step by step with them. Adults, you kind of have to do a lot of the work for them. You can't; they're not as captive an audience as a school student, so you have to kind of ease them into it a little bit more gently.
Hmm.
And but so you provide them with the thing that's scariest is drawing the sketch. And so you provide that for them and then teach them the other steps. And then you gradually can work them into doing, well, why don't you do your own sketch? Or why don't you change this up like this and just ease them into it? And like I said, each person needs a different kind of encouragement. Um, I was in a watercolor class with a lady, and she was just all down on herself and complaining, and I can't do this. And I gave her my normal, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and just, kick her in the butt and get going. And she broke down and cried and said, I've been in therapy for 10 years and you helped me more in 5 minutes. I went, oh my gosh, what have I done? But she did it. She stepped up and started. And some people need that kick, and some people need the gentle touch. And working with horses has taught me which one needs the kick and which one needs the pat.
Hmm. Hmm. So you said something about your sister. You said that, with her paint and sips, she gives them the basis, the techniques and the ways to do it, but they all turn out different. So anytime I've ever done a paint and sip, like at the paint and wine or whatever, we've just followed step by step. And I noticed because I got to be in your classroom and be one of those observers with critiquing, I noticed that you didn't do that with your students. Like you gave them the techniques, but you didn't let them just copy what you were doing. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I tell all my students, I said, every human being is unique. Every human being is creative. It comes out in different ways, and people have different material that they use. Some people can cook amazingly, and their presentation of the plate and the table are, phenomenal. Some people just naturally dress well. They can go into a thrift store and come out looking like they runway model. Some people use different materials to be creative.
Mhm.
But lost track where I was going. But
About, about not copying.
oh, in my classroom, it's you cannot copy anybody else's drawing. That's not ethical. So I present the ideas to them and make them work on their own and tell them, said, you can't draw like me. And they're like, yeah, right, we know. I said, but on the flip side, I can't draw like you. That's why I don't draw on your drawings. I'll draw separately and show you how to do something. But every human being makes their individual mark, like their individual fingerprint. And you know, there are people that have tried to copy masters' artworks, and they study years and years and years to copy the marks that the other person made. And it takes way more work learning to copy somebody else's mark than to just do your own.
Mm-hmm.
And so each person's artwork is unique, and whatever you create is artwork. If you worked and tried and it comes out, if
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of phoned it in, that comes out too.
Mm-hmm.
But each person does their own mark. And that validates people and makes them realize that whatever it is that they do, it has a value. And that is the main icebreaker to get through to letting creativity out.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to like the people, whether it's the adults you're teaching or the students you're teaching, and they're like, well, my horse just doesn't look like a horse. I can't get it to look real. Or my people are not people, they're more like aliens. What do you say to that?
I can tell you've been listening in my classroom. That realism, that's one of the main stumbling blocks, is everybody thinks that artwork is realism. And
Mhm.
it's just a small sliver of how artwork is. I said, it doesn't have to be realistic. You know, that's one aspect. Learning how to draw realistically is a nice end game and is a good skill to have. But being able to translate that object into an expression of emotion or make people feel a certain way when they see it, and you could make it abstract. You could come up with an idea for a horse and do just abstract brushstrokes that get the feeling of a horse, and you have accomplished more than drawing every hair and every nostril on
Mhm.
that animal.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when people see one of those hyper realistic pictures, they go, wow, because they realize how much work that took. But when you see like a free abstract painting of a horse in motion, you get the feeling of that power and that horse in motion, and you get a completely different feel than the awe of the work that it took. If you're thinking about how much work it took to draw something, you're not getting the right vibe from the artwork.
Hmm. Very, very different than I think the way that many of us in school had art teachers trying to prepare us for, well, I grew up around here in the Houston area, so we always did rodeo art. So a very
Mm-hmm.
different feel than that.
Yes. I've seen rodeo art destroy students. And my own daughter, after doing rodeo art, she's a very accomplished artist. She did not draw or paint for 3 years after doing rodeo art. It was just so tedious, and it pained her to do it.
Yeah. Sad, huh? But she does it now.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Rodeo art is like 10 years ago, 10, 20 years ago. So
Yes.
yeah, she's also, yeah, she would send me, we do critiques in our family, on a little on messenger,
Hmm.
or we text each other and we show pictures in progress. And so she would text me pictures from Africa when she was an intern there, and I would critique them and send back my suggestions, and then she'd send to work on it and send another. And we do that with our paintings back and forth in our family,
Oh,
because I have three sisters. We all do artwork of some kind, and my mom and our daughters, and we all do artwork of some kind. So we end up with a pretty large group to critique each other.
that's awesome. We got such a great legacy and connection with the family. So you kind of mentioned earlier that you are thinking about starting a YouTube video, or YouTube videos with your teaching and work, but currently, is there a place that our listeners could find you online or not at this time?
Not at this time. Um, just, my my Facebook page is probably the best place to do it. So, um, and I've got some work. Sometimes I enter the local art shows, and I'm getting the Art League in Fort Bend has asked me to do some classes, and so I'm checking in with them and doing some classes. I entered some of my silk painting in the art show last month and got a lot of really fantastic feedback. I also entered a couple of collage portraits that I did, which was a different, and so they're all on top of anything that's new and different, a different way of doing creativity. And so they're wanting me to do some little 1-day classes up there.
So fun.
And if I can find a place to do them, I do them around here. I just can't find a place to do them.
So you're willing to travel and teach anywhere.
Yes, I love to travel. I've been to all but 6 states and 3 or 4 countries. So
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, I thank you so much for your time and for me being able to pick your brain and to learn more about how to be creative, even when we believe that we're not creative. And I love the analogy of your two passions of training horses and how they are also like teaching people and helping them also to realize that they can break through their potential through hard work and be something amazing as a horse. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you
I've
for your time.
enjoyed this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye.